It's very fascinating to see, it will be fascinating to see how Sir Keir Starmer and his front bench sort of cope with the fact that there's an awful lot of negative stuff about them at the moment, and yet they're walking in as the triumphant Labour Party, first time in government in years. But it might be very difficult.
I don't think they'll care, Anne. I think there's a waft of arrogance from this Labour government. Keir Starmer's wife, Victoria, heading to London Fashion Week the day after Wardrobe Gate kicked off. What does that tell you?
But surely they're learning that arrogance doesn't have a very good look about it. But I tell you what, we're joined now by somebody whose conference went brilliantly. I mean, my goodness, what a show that was.
Thank you very much.
Packed out as well, and professional and brilliant speakers. And it doesn't really matter what sort of your political leaning is. You couldn't help but think that was quite something. Does it feel, do you feel good about that and how it went?
I mean, there were some 4,000 delegates in the hall, the tech, the lights, the colour. But guess what? It was fun. There was energy and enthusiasm.
Do you know,
and
I've even heard critics of you say that.
Yes.
On the radio, on certain radio stations that wouldn't normally be treating you nicely.
It was, and that's fair enough. That's what politics is about. But we were celebrating our success in the general election, but also looking forward, looking at the disasters that have already befallen the country under this Labour government. You've been talking about the Prime Minister's approval rating, and we sort of set out the challenges, what's going wrong, the appalling withdrawal of the winter fuel allowance, the disastrous implications of net zero that I talked about, but also a sense of optimism. We're setting up hundreds of branches up and down the country. We've got a new constitution that was approved at conference yesterday, which democratises the party. So, yeah, we're looking forward with ambition, with optimism. And guess what? Competition's a good thing, whether it's against Labour or against the Conservatives. It makes us all perform better. And I think all the other parties will be looking at their conferences and saying, golly, ours are a bit gloomy. That looked rather fun and full of energy.
Richard, sorry to bring this up in the aftermath of your successful conference, but I want to know the truth behind Ben Habib and Reform, because Ben Habib on Friday was banging on about how the party needed to be transparent and the changes weren't going to be good enough. Aaron Banks retweeted him and said, how to spot a troublemaker who thinks he's important. What has happened? Can you just say once and for all between Ben Habib and Reform?
The joy of a democracy is that you can have different views about something. So the Constitution was approved, I think, almost unanimously by thousands of delegates yesterday. Of course, some people might say, well, I prefer this wording or that type of structure. That's fine, but it was approved in the Constitution. Life would be boring if we were all the same. Ben's very committed, he's very enthusiastic. We just happen to disagree on one view. And when conference delegates come up to me and say, can you please confirm that this new Constitution means we can't be hijacked by bad elements, which can happen in growing political parties, that reinforces why actually this structure, this way of democratising the party is exactly the right one.
So nothing particularly has happened? There hasn't been an incident between Nigel or Ben?
We can have different views about how we do different things. And
because Nigel said he's not even a member of the party, yet Ben Habib is doing rounds in the airwaves.
We've got 80,000 members of the party, so I don't have the list in front of me. Who knows? What I do know is that we've got a hugely successful conference. I think on Friday we had 2,700 new members join in one day.
Wow.
It was our second highest ever. So there's incredible enthusiasm. You see we're going up in the polls in Wales, in Scotland, across the whole of the UK, and that's a reflection of people's recognition that actually that energy, that fun, well, maybe that means we do things quite well and we're talking common sense.
Well, your whole message definitely was one of looking forward and looking up and having something to be hopeful about. I wish Nigel would shut up about Britain being broken. I just hate that phrase. But nevertheless, the whole atmosphere was up, up, up. What do you make of Keir Starmer, who seems to be the absolute polar opposite, is saying everything's doom, gloom and despondency and we're going to get worse. Things are going to be really bad.
I think that's why it's rainy and gloomy today at the start of their conference, frankly, because, look, things are tough. Everybody is really feeling it. And we're just saying, look, with this government's policies, actually, things are going to remain tough. But we've got to be optimistic. You can turn this round. But you've got to have the right judgment. You've got to have the right empathy. And there's a story in the Daily Mail about the appalling judgment by the Prime Minister on the day after the horrific Southport murders, when he went to Southport in the morning, laid a floral tribute, got heckled by someone who said, you'd got your photo op. And the heckler was right, because I was in the chamber at 6:30 when the Home Secretary came to give a statement with the names of the 3 children who were brutally brutally killed. And there were MPs, I had a tear in my eye, hundreds of MPs were tearful. The Prime Minister should have been in the chamber with the nation mourning, as opposed to partying in the garden of Number 10 that he criticised the previous regime for doing. It showed a lack of empathy, a lack of sympathy and a complete lack of judgment.
OK, I have admittedly, and you ran this morning, said, I just don't get this story. Why shouldn't they have had a gathering in the evening? But that sheds new light on it, the fact
that was the point. We were there. It was so sad. We were all... There were tears welling up. The MP next to me, I nearly had to give him a hug. He was crying. And, the Prime Minister should have been alongside the Home Secretary, giving that statement, recognising the pain the whole nation.
He must have known that the Home Secretary was going to give that statement.
Of course.
And the details within it. But he still went ahead and had that...
He sent the Home Secretary, frankly, to do what was a tragic, difficult job. He should have been alongside her. And because she was up in Liverpool that morning as well, and they should have had the judgment to say it's not appropriate for the Prime Minister to be partying with his donors and his cronies in the garden of Number 10. It's about judgment and empathy and sympathy.
He's a clever man. He's an intelligent man. How do you explain the gaffes that he seems to be making?
Well, maybe actually you can be intelligent but not have common sense and judgment and empathy with what's going on in a nation, how a nation's feeling, and that's what we want from a Prime Minister. And frankly, that's not what we're getting. I'm pleased to confirm here today I've paid for this suit. The idea that they have to get someone else to pay for their glasses, their suits, their dresses, it's absurd. Where's their judgment about how bad that looks when at the same time, in the same breath, you're withdrawing the pension allowance? 22,200 constituents in Boston Skegness are losing their pension allowance.
Explain it.
A constituent came up to me, she shook my hand in Boston a couple of weeks back and burst into tears of genuine fear.
Yeah, you make a good point about intelligence. You can have all the qualifications coming out your ears, and I saw it at my old newspaper with people coming on work experience, but they couldn't pick up the phone or knock on a door. It doesn't mean you're intelligent, it just means you've got some qualifications.
But the entire front bench seems to be making these gaffes and has accepted donors' money.
The hypocrisy.
Is it arrogance, Richard?
It's a combination of arrogance, hypocrisy, and we can do anything. We've got this huge landslide victory, but at the same time they were criticising others for cronyism. The truth is, actually, they were doing it themselves, and they've been caught out, and the nation is furious.
Okay.
How would you, if you were Keir Starmer, how would you get up on the podium today, knowing that everybody's watching you and criticising you now? A lot of his own supporters, a lot of the Labour Party, they'll be watching what he's wearing, and they'll be expecting him to address those issues. Maybe he won't. Maybe, as you said, he will just ignore all of this and just say what he wants to say.
To ignore it would be the most arrogant thing to do. Actually, what people like is, look, we all make mistakes. None of us are perfect. When you get something wrong, admit it, learn from it, and say you're not going to, hopefully, not do it again. The best thing the Prime Minister could do is say, look, we've made some mistakes. We've won an election, we've had a good start in certain areas, but we've made some mistakes in others. I'm sorry for that. We're going to learn from it and we're going to move on. That would improve his approval rating.
How much goodwill do you think is left in this government from, the electorate, but indeed Labour voters as well? And also, Richard, do you think there could be some sort of internal Labour Party coup, maybe Angela Rayner in the coming years, getting fed up with Starmer's plunging approval ratings and maybe plotting her own bid for the leadership?
Yeah, who knows? I think the reality is there are hundreds of Labour MPs who have had to defend the indefensible over the winter fuel allowance. They've had as many letters as I've had, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of fury. I was astonished so many of them stood up in the chamber and tried to defend it. I think that actually, I think Starmer and the people around him are in trouble. I think very quickly he'll have to have some form of reshuffle at the top of his team in order to improve the communications. You've got the whole Sue Gray saga. Who's running the country? Is it the Prime Minister? Is it Sue Gray? Or is it Lord Ali? I mean, frankly, we're all left in doubt at the moment.
Just remind us again, before we say goodbye, the membership, people applying for membership, was it yesterday you said it was
on Friday, we had 2,700 new members in one day alone.
Are they paid-up members, or can you be a member for free?
Of course they're paid-up members.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a free lunch unless you're in the Labour Party and you get a free suit.
How much is it for membership?
It is £25, and then some people make a voluntary donation.
So your party coffers aren't doing too badly then? You're getting there.
The reality is every political party needs to raise money. We're growing fast, and obviously setting up branches, etc. Nothing happens for free.
Because you were criticised, the party, for charging people entrance to the conference, but I was kind of thinking, that's par for the course.
Our entrance fee is the cheapest, I suspect, of all of the conferences. But I think people got huge value out of it. They went away buzzing, engaged in setting up branches, and we set a clear ambition. 28, 29, we're planning to win the next general election.
All right.